Hi, this is Bob Harrington from Stanford University on Medscape Cardiology and theheart.org. We had an earlier discussion with my friend and colleague Rob Califf to talk about his time at FDA. We're going to now have an expanded conversation as to what's he going to do now, thinking about his new role as chair of a not-for-profit foundation spun out of PicoNet, and how this may be a way by which important healthcare questions can get answered at scale, at a massive scale, at a fraction of the cost of current clinical research methods. Maybe even more interesting, we'll spend some time exploring what he's going to be doing at Verily here in Silicon Valley. Let's start with the Duke role. What are you going to be doing at Duke, and why did you agree to do this? Why did you find this important?
Well, Bob, I hope you don't mind. I'll just bring our relationship into this. As you vividly remember, you and I wrote a proposal to the university when you were here at Duke to create essentially a cross-institutional effort in health data science. It was too early for Duke at that point.
I was going to say, I still think it was a good idea.
It was the right idea. And as I remember, when you were recruited to be chair of medicine at Stanford, that plan was a part of the picture, and you're busy implementing it much. I'm really proud of what you've put together there, partly going back to our discussions many years ago. But fast forward 6 years, and the institution at Duke really is ready. The whole campus is on fire about making sense out of health data. We've got all this talent and money and computational power out in Silicon Valley and a few other high-tech places. Just in the last month, there have been 4 key articles about the disparities that exist in the U.S. in general for longevity, but specifically about cardiovascular disease, since this is a cardiology audience. Essentially, you have areas living better and longer, mostly economically advantaged, well-educated people. And then you have the rest of the country, which is experiencing a reduction in life expectancy for the first time since 1918. Duke is in a very special position in the state of North Carolina in the southeast, where the health is not looking too good. And the ability to use information and develop technologies and tools to help people turn this around, I think, is a critical mission. The focus here is not just on, quote, academic, unquote, analyses. It's on actionable analysis that leads to implementation of strategies that improve health and healthcare.
There is, as you say, a lot of academic interest in the growing computational ability, in part, made real by better computing power, by cloud computing, by techniques and technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, et cetera. So it's all gotten better, and it's been in some ways largely an academic exercise in medicine, but now the real push is to apply it, which brings me to your second role, which is as the chair of the board of this new not-for-profit foundation that's spun out of PCORI and PicoNet, and you're going to lead an effort thinking about application and testing of ideas that can then be widely applied or implemented. Let's talk first about PicoNet. What is this, and why a not-for-profit board, and why do you want to spend time doing this?
Well, I had started working with the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute to develop this network before going to FDA, working with my good friend Rich Flatt, and ultimately an amazing team at the coordinating center, but also something like 34 health systems and 20 to 30 patient-powered research networks all joined together to do research practically important that met the needs identified by patients. So PCORI while I was at FDA, PCORI put a lot of infrastructure funding into this network, and it was thrilling that I came back to Duke, and pretty shortly thereafter I got a call asking if I was willing to be the chair of the board to take this entity into a not-for-profit foundation. Essentially, it's a transition. You might liken it to birdie in the nest being fed by Mother PCORI, and now it's got to fly. And it is a not-for-profit. It's there in the interest of patients. There's no motive to create shareholder value and all that, but there sure is a motive to do a better job in answering critical questions more quickly and at a lower cost so that patients can get what they need.
Yeah, as you know, working together with you, an idea that you and I had many years ago, which was to test the appropriate dose of aspirin. Now PCORI has funded the adaptable trial to test this question, and you and I have both been involved in this, and it's been an amazing exercise to really watch how powerful it can be to do research on an infrastructure of aggregated EHR data, and allows you to think about answering questions at scale that previously was just not possible.
Yeah, we had a meeting yesterday at the Health Policy Center in Washington, and when you cross-relate EHR data now being curated by health systems like Stanford is doing, and we're doing here at Duke and across the country, you cross-tabulate that with claims data from the payers and registry data from the professional societies. I think we're going to be able to do research at a fraction of the cost and actually answer all these questions that really bother people, that we don't know the right treatment for a lot of things now, and we can find out.
Yeah, and if we can get the system honed to a point where it truly is generating information as to what are the most appropriate choices in practice for both physicians and patients, it will be an extraordinary step forward. Both of us heavily influenced by Gene Stead's vision from many years ago. You pull out those papers from the 60s and 70s, and Dr. Stead was talking about this then, wasn't he?
Yeah, so, and I think, he was definitely a pioneer in the early use of computers in medicine. And many of us who are disciples of Dr. Stead, have been waiting for the day when computation got to the point where it was really feasible to do it. Now we've got to get the culture to catch up with the computation. And I think between PCORNet and a consortium of academic centers like Duke and Stanford, I'm really hopeful that we can get over this history that we've had of celebrating the individual and hoarding data, as opposed to using data in the most efficient way to get the answers that help people live longer and become more functional.
Earlier today, I was on the phone with our mutual friend and colleague, Adrian Hernandez, and we were talking about open data and data sharing with a broader group. And Adrian said the clinical trialists are wanting to share. They're just trying to figure out how. He said, we need to deal with America's healthcare systems, who it's not a how issue. They just don't want to share.
It's a view that's prevalent that hoarding and hiding your data about your business process is of great value, and ultimately there'll be all this intellectual property. Well, I think the superseding value needs to be what's best for patients. And, nobody more clear about this than Joe Biden, who, when he took his son around to cancer centers with glioblastoma, it became obvious to him that our best cancer centers are not sharing data very well.
Yeah.
And no one sees enough people with glioblastoma to really do the work that's needed to find effective treatments. And so he's a real zealot about this, and we just have to figure out how to do it and get people over the hump.
Yeah, and certainly there are some cultures within subcultures within medicine, like the pediatric cancer world, where they have figured out that an unusually occurring disease or an infrequently occurring diseases, that banding together is in the best interest of everybody, most notably the patients. But let's, in the last couple minutes, Rob, focus on Verily. People out there, I think, know that Verily is part of the Alphabet family, part of the Google family. I think people are less familiar with some of the things they're doing. Why don't you talk about Verily, what their charge is, or how they see themselves in the health technology world, and then what you're going to be doing with them?
Well, if you look at Google as a whole, it's founded on the basis that if you aggregated, stored, and organized information, that the world would get better. And now let's apply that to health and healthcare and biology. That basically is what Verily is attempting to do. So, although it is spun out of Google formally as a member of the Alphabet family, it has access to all the prowess that exists across the Google system of all these really smart people and engineers who know how to use computers in ways that are frankly baffling to me, but pretty exciting. And so I think it's useful to think about Verily maybe in two parts. One is a series of joint ventures. Some of them have been publicly announced. Some of them are in process now with more traditional pharma or device companies to marry the Google ability to put together technologies and sensors and information with traditional medical products companies' ability to distribute and market and manufacture. And then the other part is dealing more broadly with health information, which is where most of my focus will be. And, I went through Google orientation less than 2 weeks ago. I may be the only Medicare recipient to go through Google orientation. It felt that way. And so I'm not far enough along yet to really talk in detail about what we're going to do, except just to mention a baseline study that you and I have been involved in since before I went to FDA, which is now enrolling. It's a Duke Stanford Verily project being led at Verily by Jess Mega, which, I think of as a study to measure everything you can possibly measure about 10,000 people. If you just look at the data system for this effort, it far exceeds anything I've ever seen in the ability to store and compute 6 terabytes of data on each participant from each follow-up visit, but in between, streaming of dozens of parameters into the cloud continuously. This was unimaginable a few years ago, but now it's being done.
Yeah, we've been, as you indicated, been having a lot of fun on campus, thinking about the baseline project and just starting to put people into the trial and the data collection. As you've said, 6 terabytes worth of data, first visit taking more than a day because of the amount of information that's being collected. And what's been extraordinary to see is that in addition to the technical prowess, it is really generating great buzz in the community. People want to participate in this and want to go through this process of really being citizen scientists and providing their data for greater good.
Yeah, I'm very excited by it, but you would agree. I think that it's just the beginning. And the same data platform, by contract, will be used in the Precision Medicine Initiative. It's an effort with NIH and many, many academic medical centers. I think Verily and Vanderbilt are in a joint contract on this, enrolling over 1 million Americans. I would hope for 100 million, as I've told Francis Collins, but just the beginning.
That's a good way to end our conversation. It is just the beginning. Rob, it's been fun to talk with you. For our listeners, we've explored everything from your time at FDA to your new role thinking about health data science at Duke, to the time you're going to spend with PCORNet in trying to do nationwide clinical studies involving integrated electronic health record systems, and then finally the time that you're spending in Silicon Valley, including at Verily.
Well, it's been great talking with you, and I hope maybe there's a way you can display one of the JAMA heat maps so people can see it. And for cardiologists listening in, we got to do a great job technically, and as cardiologists taking care of patients one at a time. But if we don't do something about the negative direction that cardiovascular risk is headed, particularly in the economically and educationally deprived populations in the United States, we're going to be in big trouble. So we got to work on that. I hope the kind of technologies we talked about will be tools that we can use to expand our reach as cardiologists to a much broader population.
My guest today has been Rob Califf from Duke University, Stanford University, and Verily. So, Rob, thanks for joining us today on Medscape Cardiology and the Heart.org.
You bet. Take care.